Welcome to the Academy of Esports podcast. I am your host, James O'Hagan, and today I get to bring back onto the show Dr. Rachel Kowert from the Great White North up near Toronto. Dr. Kowert, thank you for being a guest in the Academy of Esports podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
And the last time we chatted, things were a little different in the world. It was July. We didn't know which way COVID was going.
Yeah.
And the debate about screen time had really kind of surprisingly disappeared. There wasn't a whole lot of people worried about screen time at that time. But like I said, the world is different and things have changed a little bit. And again, I wanted to bring you back to see how things are going in the world when it comes to online toxicity, because we've been all living online now, it seems like, for almost a whole year now.
Forever. It seems like forever, because time, what is time anymore?
I don't know anymore. It still feels like March of 2020 right now.
It really does. It's hard to believe that it's been a year. Yeah, past me, when we talked about screen time, was way more optimistic about the way that the public discourse was going. Current me, less optimistic.
Well, I mean, let's think about this. I don't hear a whole lot about it in my field, but that's because in education, we're still primarily online. Though I have had parents, we are making the big transition to start bringing students back actually this Monday, March 1st, for those of you who are listening late. And one of the big things that I've had some parents reach out to me about through my virtual program is they don't want the synchronous online learning anymore where kids are in front of computers for 6 hours.
Oh.
They want the asynchronous experience. They want the experience where their kids can be online when they need to, get the work done that they need to, and then when they're done with it, they're done with it. But has attitudes adjusted, or has research come out recently that's kind of maybe changing some minds about what screen time impacts there are?
Yeah. So at the very beginning of the pandemic, we saw a lot of talk about, especially with games, like, oh, games can be great. They're a great way to connect. Everyone get on games because you can stay, 6 feet apart from each other and you can enjoy this playful social space. And I gave a talk at the National Communication Association. I gave the keynote this year, and that was in August. And at the end, I was like, I'm so optimistic that everybody is talking. And then flash forward in January, so last month, there was an article printed by the New York Times on the physical paper. It was on the front page of the New York Times.
I call it a hit piece, but you can call it an article if you want.
Yeah. Saying how, TLDR, screens are bad, games are bad. My kid plays too many games. What's he going to do when he's older, when he's stressed out, tell his wife he wants to play his Xbox, like saying that, that's a totally legit thing that you can do, but saying it like that's a bad thing. The picture was like the poor kid in the middle with like his parents brooding over him. So things seem to have bounced back to where we were pre-COVID.
Well, and that's a shame, because I know that one of the things that I struggle with in education is, again, as we're making this transition back, and I keep arguing that, hey, we're going to have families who are still going to want online experiences where their kids don't necessarily have to go to school for 6 hours a day, or need flexibility in the schedule, or a kid wants to take a class at one school, but it's only offered at another school. And I'm really hopeful that there isn't going to be this return to, seat time, we got to have you in the seats for so many hours, and online learning isn't real learning, and school has been closed. And really, I hate people when they say, well, we need to reopen schools. We've never closed. It's just,
right. Right.
We've been open this whole time.
Yeah. We've been working double time. Teachers have been working double time. I mean, my daughter is 6. And so here in the Great White North, kindergarten is split into 2 years, and kindergarten is optional. But she has been doing online learning, and she learns things, and she gets to see her friends, and I get peace of mind because I'm pregnant. For those who don't know, my husband has COPD. Like, our kids aren't going to school. We're waiting for vaccines. I am so grateful to have the online learning. And I feel like a lot of times people are like, get the kids in the schools. Like, you need to take a minute to appreciate, one, how much effort teachers have put in to pivot completely. And two, how genuinely lucky we are to have this technology to be able to have that.
Yeah, I think back to, the big thing that used to shut down schools for the longest time was polio outbreaks. And when a polio outbreak would happen, and of course the polio vaccine was developed, I believe, in the early 60s. Jonas Salk and his group, schools would just shut down, pools would shut down, communities would shut down, and kids would stay in. They would not let kids even out. And it wasn't like, hey, get on the internet. No, it was listen to the radio, and even what's interesting is that when those experiences would happen on a large scale, there were instances where schools would try to provide radio instruction. So they would use the radios in the community to teach kids. And again, a lot of the same complaints of, well, this isn't a real school. But I got to believe that the definition of school is changing.
Yeah. What is it? I mean, it's educational programming. I mean, of course, it's not, sitting in a different room somewhere so mommy and daddy can work, which I do understand people and parents. My work productivity has significantly decreased. But yeah, it's still educational. It's still school. The teacher's there. The kids are there. And think about Reading Rainbow. Remember Reading Rainbow? My parents would have definitely.
Wait a second. Do I know Reading Rainbow? No, wait a minute. There we go. Yes, I know Reading Rainbow.
I mean, right. My parents would love it when I sat and watched Reading Rainbow. They wouldn't, poo-poo on LeVar Burton and say that that's less educational than anything else.
I just had to throw that in again. So yeah, but one of the things right now, again, you being the psychologist, you may be able to help me through this.
Sure.
We've talked a lot about the mental health of kids at this time.
Yeah.
And how they're trying to make their connections and how we're trying to make, we have to reopen schools because their mental health, the kids' mental health. What about teacher mental health at this time?
Yes, that's a consideration, teacher mental health. Also, I mean, we'll talk about student mental health and then teacher mental health. Student mental health is also important, but so is their physical health, which is why they're home in the first place. Of course, it's important to be around their peers, which again, is why games are a really great way to keep them connected to their peers. In these unprecedented, I know that term is overused, but in these unprecedented times, we're doing the best that we can with the tools that we have. Right. Teachers, the poor teachers, you are the hardest working. You nurses and doctors, teachers, nurses, and doctors have been working triple time over the last year. And it's true, teachers need a break, but it's not coming anytime soon. Like in Canada, we have March break, like spring break, which has now been postponed because after Christmas break, nobody followed the rules and the COVID cases spiked. And so they had to stay home and postpone coming back from Christmas break. So they don't want to do that again. So they're like, we're going to cancel March break and just push through and add that on at the beginning of the summer. And of course, that's really hard for teachers because they obviously want a break. But you have to think about the fact that no one follows the rules. And if you take the break, it's really going to be off for another month because the cases are going to spike. So it's really hard. I send prayers and fingers crossed and all the good karma that we'll make it to summer and the teachers can have a break because it has been a year I can't even imagine what it's been like.
The thing that we're moving to now is, I think we're calling it, I don't want to call it simul teaching or I forgot what it is. But you have, you and I having a discussion right now, like remotely, but imagine me having 5 people over my shoulder, also part of the conversation, trying to do it.
Oh, interesting.
This is having, synchronous learning in a virtual sense, but also with kids in the room. And there's some interest. I don't know if it's research, but I guess they're extrapolating data or thoughts around, again, this is going to create higher anxiety for teachers, which could then get pushed off to the kids as well too. So again, we're talking about mental health, but mental health isn't just, as you said, being physically present. Mental health is like a mix of a bunch of different things. It's like your environment and your interactions and what you're doing, right? Is there anything I'm missing that makes up what we would consider
it's nurture and nature, right? But right now, everyone is in so super high stress, overwork. And not only that, it's been happening for a year. So now we have the fatigue of it all. And there was a really great research article that came out this week from Stanford talking about Zoom fatigue and the different reasons why it is so much more tiring and exhausting for us to be communicating this way. One is that you're constantly see your own face, and that's like really weird because you don't normally do that in social interactions. The second is you have to really pay attention, whereas at work, you can walk and talk and multitask and do other things, and that's not the same as you are in a Zoom call. And there were a whole host of other reasons. So yeah, it's like, not only is it harder to do what you're doing, number one. Number two, at the very beginning, you had to scramble to figure out how to even do it effectively. And now you've been doing it for over a year. So all teachers need a massage. Teachers need a break and a vacation.
Well, and I've advocated in my school district for us not to have summer school, but I have lost that battle. Because guess what? Yeah. Because they want to say you have to catch up. Catch up to what? Catch up to who?
Yeah. I think we all need to give ourselves a little bit of a break. I mean, so I have a really good friend back home. Her son graduated high school in 2020. They didn't do anything in 2020. They didn't have a senior year. They didn't learn anything. I promise there were no tests. All the standardized tests were thrown out the window. They're fine. They're fine. He's in college. He's becoming a welder. He's fine. Don't need to catch up. You need a break. That's what you need.
Well, to kind of, I guess, segue the conversation a little bit, we, talking about fatigue and talking about, online experiences, you did an amazing job recently breaking down the Brighter Female Gamer Survey for 2020. I want to dig into this quite a bit because
let's do it.
First of all, I'm going to put a link in. Those of you who are listening on the podcast stream, when that comes out later, you'll have this in the show notes, but I'm putting this up for the people who are watching right now on Twitch. This survey is like, I put it right up here with the Anti-Defamation League report that they did, I think it was last year, on, online experiences and how, yes, there are people who are having negative experiences, but the positive experiences are outweighing the negative experience that people are having in online spaces. But this does a really great job, I think, of really getting into the meat and potatoes around gender inequity, I guess, in gaming spaces that we're seeing, particularly around, how many female gamers are playing alone online compared to me. I mean, that was one of the ones that really stood out to me, was just how many are preferring to not engage in online spaces versus males who are engaging in online spaces.
Yeah, absolutely.
You did a great I could just play the 6 minute.
It's 6 minute. Roll the film. No.
Yeah, I'm just going to, we're all going to sit back and watch this now.
No, don't do that. I think that for me, I was happy to see that they looked at, do you consider yourself a gamer? Because I've talked a lot about gamer social identity, and that kind of reiterates some of the research we already know, that females are less likely to call themselves gamers, even though they're not less likely to actually play games. It's just they don't feel like they're part of the community. And part of that is a fear of playing online. There's a lot of good research too from Fox and Tang. They publish a lot as a duo about females and why they don't play online, or why they don't use voice chat, or why they play as male avatars. And seeing it still in 2020 is sad, but it also bolsters these findings that we found in other areas of research of why females have historically been mistreated in online gaming spaces and then choose to not engage in them.
And I've seen it firsthand. One of our kids in the Racine School District, who was one of our captains last year, in the fall. I got to think years. Fall of 2019. Okay, sorry, I don't know what year it is.
What is time? We've already been over that. Yeah.
Fall of 2019, Kalia came to our team. She was a senior, became junior varsity captain, and she had said for 2 years she did not play Overwatch. Like, she just completely cut it out. And I've, again, because they just don't feel they want to play, obviously, but again, these walled gardens don't exist, or these, supportive interactions that take place. What was something, I guess, that stood out to you in this report that maybe has been a major shift, or maybe was there anything that you thought was a major shift?
I was surprised at the low levels of numbers. So they looked at esports, and I mentioned this in the video, and they talk about what proportion of females said they don't feel comfortable at esports competitions or wouldn't go to one
just
in person. Yeah, just attending, competing. They asked a bunch of different questions, but all of the answers were kind of around a third. And I thought that was low. So that did surprise me. I thought it would be higher because I wouldn't go. I'm in the third, I guess. But the other thing I really like too, I've been on this soapbox lately about toxicity and harassment in games. I published an article about it in Frontiers in Psychology last year, creating kind of a taxonomy, because people talk about toxicity kind of as it's like this blob.
Like mental health.
Like mental health, right? But there's gradients, right? There's like trash talking and there's like swatting, and there's definitely a lot of stuff in between. So I liked in the Brighter report, they didn't do it as detailed as I did, but they looked at verbal harassment versus behavioral harassment versus threats of rape versus stalking behavior, and looked, and it's clear that men experience more harassment of the mild form and females experience more harassment of the more severe form, which I think is a really important finding, and what I was really getting at publishing the theoretical paper about doing the taxonomy, because it's important to know, like, what are people experiencing and where is it on the spectrum? Because if it's trash talking, that might just be part of the game and we don't need to put too much money and effort into that. But if, a significant proportion of people are being harassed or stalked or doxxed, that's a problem. And we need to know how big the problem is and so how we can fix it.
Well, it's not like I'm going to go to Riot to say fix it, because they can't seem to fix their own internal culture. So how do these companies that have internal cultures, I guess, it's like, how do you fix a problem, right, when you can't even address your own house? It's
harder. Yeah, I mean, that's a separate issue. So, well, maybe not separate but related. Part of toxicity and harassment in games begins at the level of the place where the games are being made. Right. And Take This published a white paper. I think it was, what is time? It's hard for me. I think it was 2018. I think it was published.
I'm just what I'm going to call this episode. What is time?
What is time? Sorry. I think it was 2018, but we looked specifically at industry and lack of diversity and potential toxicity and harassment behaviors in the industry. And it is a problem. And so it's unsurprising that problem then carries over into the cultures and communities.
Yeah. And again, it takes these. I did send you a quick message. I need to get a link to your theoretical somewhere. But again, it still lends itself to this whole thing of because I'm starting to see this now. Esports league starting up for kids, right?
Yes.
But the big selling point is, hey, you don't have to deal with your school, and hey, you don't have to deal with parent oversight or anything. Just come play. And to me, it's like we're putting it right back to where it was in the beginning. It's like this Lord of the Flies almost experience, except now we've given it a nice, it's a company out making money and trying to, say, look at all the nice things we're doing. Mm-hmm. I worry about stuff like that because, again, I don't want to perpetuate the toxicity, the lack of positive adult interaction and things that we know are the things that help push against mental health crises and keep kids from developing these habits of toxic behavior.
Yeah. It's a big problem, Jim. I mean, there is a new initiative called Raising Good Gamers. I should find the link to that. I think it's the Fair Play Alliance who is behind that. No, Games for Change. Games for Change is behind that.
Oh, we like those people.
Yes, they're lovely. But it's a new initiative that's starting up that is really playing into exactly what you're saying. It's like, how do we raise good gamers now from the younger ones to the older ones? Because these cultures have formed, and part of it is having intervention, having good role models, having adult role models in those spaces to help differentiate what is right and what is wrong, and what is acceptable and what is not. And I think that's really important. I mean, you don't want to be totally hands off.
Well, when you're looking at this data, when you're looking at the things that we're experiencing right now, because I know it's easy. I shouldn't say it's easy. There seems to be a lot of these reports. This is the current state of this. Like I said, the Anti-Defamation League report, this one, but I don't see a whole lot of potential solutions. What do you see as ways to start moving things in a positive direction?
Yes. Great question. I have soapbox about this, and I hope to do some research I want to do some research to validate my soapbox.
Well, you got to have the baby first, or do it.
Have the baby first. Yes.
Yeah.
Step 1, make life. Step 2, save the world. So So I think it needs to be top down and bottom up. So top down from the industry, reporting tools. I always start with reporting tools because I've given talks to esports groups, adolescent esports groups, who say the same things like, I won't play a certain game because the cultures are toxic. And my first go-to is always use the reporting tools. And I always get eye rolls. And they always tell me, why would I do that? It doesn't work. Like, why would I bother? So I think there has to be some kind of tweaking to the reporting tools. Either they're not working or they're giving the impression that they're not working. So something has to give there, because we want people to actually report these behavior that's going on, and we want there to be repercussions from the top down for behaving in ways that are unacceptable in gaming spaces. So we definitely need more top down. And then from bottom up, research has found the best way to quell this behavior is to have an active ally. So if you and I are playing and there's
what are we playing?
Overwatch.
Okay.
And I'm terrible.
I need a scenario.
We're playing Overwatch, and I'm terrible, but we're just having a good time.
Yes, we're having fun.
Maybe you're slightly better than me.
Nope. I'm probably worse.
No, equal. Okay, even better. You're equally terrible. And there's someone else on the team who you can hear on voice chat who is a male who starts saying mean things to me about being a female and being terrible. Now, they say in the research, the best way to actually get him to stop that behavior is if someone of a similar social status, which would be you as another fellow male, says to him, hey, man, that's not cool. Like, really, it can be as simple as that. And that's actually been found to be the most effective way to actually stop the behavior in the moment. Yes.
No money, no special software, no nothing.
It's literally see something, say something, stand up for your fellow gamer and just call them out. You don't even have to do anything more than just calling them out. So yeah, we need top down and bottom up, and then hopefully over time you'd see a culture change and a culture shift.
But unfortunately, like you said, this has to come from a similar status or a similar level.
That is the most effective way. Yes.
Okay. So, but like you said, I don't want to say that that's problem. It's sad. It's sad that it is
sad, but it doesn't necessarily have to be male, female. It could also be like heterosexual, homosexual. If somebody is being harassed for their sexuality, by a heterosexual person, another heterosexual person saying something. It is sad, but also if you think of like basic psychology, we tend to listen and learn most from people who are most like ourselves. And so that's playing into it. You also have the issues of being anonymous on the internet, which makes people more inclined to behave in bad ways because they think there's no repercussions, which is where, again, the top-down kind of repercussions coming from the top down would come into play. It's a complicated mess that requires multiple changes.
Well, what we're even seeing now, it's not even game-related research, but this week there was a report that came out about the LGBTQ community and about age groups and how they identify, right? And I was stunned to see that 15.9% of respondents in the Generation Z category, so teenagers basically now, are identifying as LGBTQ, which was like double.
Really?
It was the only double-digit breakdown, but 15.9%. Now let's think about this. If 15.9% of the core gaming group, if you will, teenagers, let's just say teenagers are that core gaming group, that needs, companies should be, I hate to call it a profit thing or like hey, know your audience or whatever. But man, they really should be paying attention to that kind of data, especially like you say, 15 out of 100,
Yeah, but a report came out this week too that showed that in most gaming groups, females make up more than half.
Yeah,
they don't pay attention to us either.
Well, what? Let's think about competition, because again, in this brighter report too, they talk about how it's female gamers who are really driving mobile gaming, where it's boys are really driving the PC market. So what does, like you said earlier, you wouldn't feel necessarily comfortable going to a competition.
Yeah. But
what would be one that you would say, like, you know what, I could see myself going to a competition or an event if it had this? Does it have to be like let me throw this out there. Does it need to be like a salute to female gamers competition where it's like we're going to be nothing but female gamers? I mean, because
the honest answer, the answer that came from my heart when you asked me is I would go to an event if I was going with my husband or with Dr. B, the clinical director of Take That, which is a sad state of affairs. But literally the first thing I thought was like, oh, I would go, but not alone. Who would I go with? A tall alpha male. I'm not everyone. I don't represent all women. Not all women would respond that way. Absolutely. I mean, only 30% said they wouldn't go. But for me, growing up as a girl who played games, as the only girl I knew forever who played games, it's not a space in which I would feel fully comfortable being alone.
Okay. But I think that's a great insight because again, especially when we're thinking about gaming culture and esports at the high school level, I feel better that knowing we're still at about 10% of our representation on our teams is female, which is way better than most other high schools that I've seen.
Yeah.
Right? And Carrie Linden just threw in here a chat. Yeah, most of these events aren't designed for women in mind, including their safety. That's messaging. But that's messaging that I have to give to our esports general managers as well.
That's true.
When we're starting teams, you can't just put the flyer up in school and say, come join esports. You have to.
Of course not. Yes.
And even when we were starting at Not Your Parents' Basement, which was a gaming lounge that we have here in downtown Racine, even the entryway, the invitation to the space is you enter through a red door in an alley, in a dark, not in a well-lit alley.
Yeah.
For a guy like me, 6'2", 200 pounds right now.
I'll go with you to an esports tournament. But for a woman, we're taught our whole lives not to walk down dark alleys.
Yeah, me, I'm like, dark alley, woo, okay.
Yeah.
But, even as we're thinking about our programs in our schools, we have to think about what's the invitation. And it's not just the putting the flyer up, but it's talking to these kids and saying, here's what the experience is going to look like, thinking about what the experience is going to look like. And again, having representation of females in leadership roles on teams, like our general managers. Some of our general managers are female. So it's important that the girls, or those who identify, I should say, as females, see themselves in the group. The other thing we started to do too, and I have to thank Carrie Linden for helping me on this as well, because I was approached by one of our scholar gamers about adding gender pronouns to our Discord server. Now, here's me. Now, again, white male, cis male, total, but school administrator going, okay, is this going to cause me any issues? Like, it's so silly that I had to even go down that road and think about it. But you know what? As an administrator, because I worry about bullying and I worry about kids getting identified who maybe don't want to be. And again, we didn't make it a requirement that you had to pick your pronouns out, but we gave kids the choice to. Carrie and this scholar gamer of ours, Ness, we had a 3-way conversation to talk about it. And it was so enlightening. And what was great was that the kids, when they were able to put in their pronouns, they acknowledged that as us seeing them for who they are. And I think that's what we miss in a lot of our game. We talk about all this, let's talk about diversity, inclusion, equity, and all this stuff in esports. But really, when you get down to it, it's these kids want to be seen. Don't you think? Of course.
And they want to feel included and welcomed. And that's part of it. And like you said, it's like, you can't just put up the flyer. You have to be like, you as a female, or you as a member of the LGBTQ plus community, you are welcomed into this space. And yes, we will see you for who you are. Yeah, I think that's great.
Well, okay. So I'm not going to give you, I'm not going to totally give you a surprise here, but.
Oh gosh. To be fair, you didn't tell me what we're talking about.
I thought I did.
Well, you said we talk about the brighter reports, but now what?
Well, this is a conversation. We can go in all different directions.
It's fine.
So you had me on Zeitgeist, which is your fabulous show. I love it.
Thanks.
Okay. And I love the segment where you ask questions.
Oh yeah, it's my favorite. Oh no, it's my favorite part. Yes.
So I have a few questions for you that I would like to ask that are totally random, that the audience can get to know you a little bit better here.
Sure.
All right. So you asked me about Disney films.
I did.
Yeah. Do you remember what my answer was? My favorite Disney film. And it is
Hercules.
Absolutely. And I am very upset that they're trying to make that into a live action. They should do nothing to it.
Okay.
But to follow up with that, what do you think of live action Disney films?
See, I'm glad you brought this up because we had a little discussion earlier in the week about Hercules because I know how much you love it. Beauty and the Beast is my second favorite. Aladdin's really my favorite. Beauty and the Beast is my second favorite Disney film. And when I found out they were doing live action, I was very upset. Even though it was Emma Watson, who I adore, I was still very upset. But you know what? That movie was legit. That was a good movie. I enjoyed it very much. I've seen it more than once.
Okay.
So I think we can give it a chance. I think generally speaking, they're not great, but there's the opportunity for something great to come because Beauty and the Beast is pretty good. I mean, are you going to argue with me?
Well, I haven't seen the live action one.
Oh, it's pretty good.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
All right.
Yeah.
So to follow up on that question, then I guess let's see. So there was that one. Oh my gosh! Now all of a sudden, now I should have written them down, or I should have had.
I mean, yes.
Okay. Okay. Oh no! Here it was.
Yeah.
What streaming services do you subscribe to? You and your family.
Oh, a lot. Netflix, Disney Plus.
Of course.
Big Mandalorian fans in the house.
WandaVision.
I know, but I haven't seen the latest one, but I'm going to watch it tonight. Look, I'm very pregnant and I fell asleep last night at 8, so I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to watch it tonight. What else do we have? We have YouTube TV during college football season because how come? And HBO.
Okay. Now.
We got a lot.
So you got 4 of them.
Too many. Probably.
All right. Here's the follow-up question. Which one you have to give up one?
I have to give up one. Oh, I give up HBO. Sorry. I love HBO, but I can't be on a cliffhanger now with WandaVision and Baby Yoda. I got to have that. And Netflix is like my bread and butter.
Well, okay. So now let's flip it around. You get to only keep one.
No, I
Yes.
can't. That's too, that's mean, first of all. I would have to say Netflix just because it has so much content, like too much, really. I lots of times, and I know I'm not the only one that just flips through Netflix and doesn't shoot for an hour and then doesn't watch anything and then goes to bed. They have so much content. It would have to be Netflix. They're raising their rates though.
But you give up Disney Plus over
That'd be a hard one. I mean, but before Mandalorian and WandaVision came out, it was really only to watch like classic Disney movies, which I love. But
I could watch Mary Poppins all day.
Yeah. I mean, I could watch Aladdin every day. My kids would let me.
I listened to Beauty and the Beast every day for about 2 years because that was what my daughter insisted when we were driving Kylie. She's now 17 years old. But we had a VCR player in our minivan.
Nice.
And I don't think Kylie ever watched it. She only listened to it because the seat was backwards. But if we were in that car, that movie was on.
Yep. Beauty and the Beast soundtrack, Lion King, Aladdin, those are all great.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now,
but then I'd have to give up Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. You're mean. It's a mean.
I am. Yes, it is a loaded question. All right. You have I know you are a Final Fantasy fanatic.
I am. I have a Moogle. Where is he?
Which is your favorite?
6.
Okay.
Easy.
Why? I mean, not 7?
No. 7 is a close second. My husband and I differ on our opinion. 6, for me, I mean, it's a lot of reasons. 6 has the best ensemble cast. I'm just going to say it. I think it's the best cast of characters. I love that there's like sibling rivalry. I love the female characters of the game. I love the music of the game. The opera scene, which is like totally random, but totally beautiful. Scary clown villain. Does it get scarier? Does it get worse than that? I'm not sure. 6 and the pixel art is timeless. Like I've been starting to play the remake of 7, but 7 didn't age well. Like 6 you could play as is still today.
And I have. But yeah, 7, the upgrade to 7 though is phenomenal.
Well,
I'm just so sad it was only half the story. I'm like,
this is the thing, Jim. Okay. I have been playing that demo at PAX for 3 years. Then it comes out and they're like, oh no, you never leave Midgar.
Yeah.
I've been waiting my whole life for this remake.
Yeah. And that's the only reason I bought a PlayStation 4. The pandemic hit, everything shut down.
You need a 5. You can't even get Yuffie story without 5. They just announced this week.
No.
The Yuffie DLC you can only have with PS5, which nobody can even buy right now. So that's just cruel, Sony.
Well, what I do love, though, I will say about the PS4 experience, and this was something that my daughter brought to my attention, Persona 5 Royale.
I haven't played it.
Well, I haven't played much of it, but I have thoroughly enjoyed watching her do it again because of the Final Fantasy aspect. It's very much like a Final Fantasy game in a lot of ways, which, by the way, you wrote a chapter in a book about the psychology of Final Fantasy called what now?
The book is called The Psychology of Final Fantasy.
Yes, there it is.
But I wrote the introduction chapter. I felt like I really just kind of bullied in the nicest of ways Tony, who was the editor of that book, to let me write the introduction chapter. Because I would have been very upset if I didn't get to set the stage for the beauty and grandiosity that is Final Fantasy.
Well, it's interesting because I did do an interview today with Torrey Olson, who is a professor at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. And he's doing a class using he's calling it Red Dead America, but it's using Red Dead Redemption to talk about American history in the South. Because you look at it, I said to him, has this inspired anybody to look at other games? But again, as you're talking about in the book, and I have my copy, I'll need you to sign it when I finally get to meet you in person.
I know. Next year, probably.
Yeah, whatever. But, I think we're going to start to see, because of the intrinsic motivation value, because gameplay has become so rich, the stories have become so in-depth and immersive, especially Japanese games where the storytelling is so completely different than Western, style.
Yes.
Because again, in Japanese style of storytelling, you are literally pretty much tossed into the story there isn't this buildup. There isn't this the beginning scene, like The Hobbit, where it's like, oh, we're going to have a party, No, if The Hobbit was written in a Japanese perspective, it would have started with
in the middle.
Yeah, in the middle.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, what the heck is going on right now? But Final Fantasy, I think, does lend itself to, you wrote a whole book about it. I think it lends itself to some fantastic potential courses. Again, 6, definitely. 7, even the
10.
Oh, yeah. Well, even 10, and my favorite is playing the little soccer game in the floating soccer.
Oh, Blitzball.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 8 too. 8 had a really good the card mini game, and 8 was excellent.
Well, yes. You know what I hated doing in 7, the remake of Final Fantasy 7, was doing the squats. Trying.
I haven't got that far into the remake.
Oh, it's hard. The first one, you're like, oh, this is easy. And then it's like, oh, no.
Oh, no. Well, and it sucks because I'm very much a completionist. But, I remember playing 12, and to get 100%, there was a foot race, and you had to win the foot race 100 times. And the foot race was literally button mashing. And after 50 or so times, I was like, you know what? This is not worth my time.
All right. So we also learned that Dr. Kowert is a completionist.
I am. All
right.
But I gave up on 12.
All right. Now, final thing. Are you a donut person?
Yes.
Wow. You answered. I didn't even get the question out.
I'm pregnant. Donuts are my jam. Well,
considering you are in Canada, the Great White North, and Tijo's is a staple. Tim Hortons. So
it is.
You get one donut choice. What is it that you go for? Look, I know these are tough questions.
Can I pick 2? Okay, listen. Apple fritter.
Real? That's not even a donut.
That's why I said, can I pick 2? Okay, apple fritter is what I base if a restaurant is a good donut shop, is based on their apple fritter. But my go-to favorite donut is the classic sour cream glazed.
You and me both. Oh, high five. High five.
Yeah.
Sour
I know.
cream, that old fashioned with the edge.
Yes.
And you can break off the edge and dip it in coffee if you wanted to, or it's crispy.
The best. They're the best. And sometimes at the grocery store, you can buy the box of them as the donut holes. Oh, yeah.
They have donut holes of those?
They do. They're dangerous. You can buy them in a whole box, a whole big box of them. Look, yeah, they're great.
I feel like then I'm having a sympathy pregnancy with you because through this whole pandemic, I've gained weight. I'm supposed to be going back to my office on Monday, and I think I'm supposed to be in a suit, and like my suit pants.
You're like, no.
I'm sorry, folks, jeans for like the next several weeks.
I'm in lounge pants. If you think I'm wearing anything but lounge pants for the next year, you are wrong.
You're fine. Well, Dr. Kowert, it wasn't 10 questions, but these were questions that had been sticking in my mind that I felt needed to be asked. Thank you again for coming back on the Academy of Esports podcast. Thank you for being a guest. And I hope that within the next year, we can talk about what that the research is again showing that we haven't permanently ruined kids by making them be on screens. And we haven't yet. We've had screens for a while. Yeah. And I really appreciate it. Do you have anything else that you wish to plug? Or I know that you're going to, again, be going on a brief hiatus, but you have everything already queued up for new episodes. So
on my YouTube channel, Zeitgeist, every Wednesday there's a new video, and there will be, through the magic of pre-queuing things up and pre-recording, there will be no interruptions for my maternity leave. I also will be live tomorrow night on the Take This Twitch channel, which is Take This org, at 6:30 Eastern, doing a panel on toxicity and content creation with some really great panel of women talking about toxicity and harassment, specifically in content creation. So if that's your jam, you can find me tomorrow.
And just because it's all women doesn't mean you have to be a woman to.
No. Definitely not.
I mean, heck, you all watch enough panels with all guys. Like
yes, that's true. That's true. You don't have to be a woman to attend. Everyone is welcome.
All right. Dr. Kowert, thank you again for being a guest on the Academy of Esports podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
That will do it for this week on the Academy of Esports. I've been your host, James O'Hagan. Esports are organized competitive video games allowing schools to redefine their athletic culture, diversify opportunities for student participation, promote good physical and mental health, increase collegiate scholarship pathways, and play games. We can never forget the importance of play. The mission of the Academy of Esports is to support these ideals. The vision of the Academy of Esports is for all students to experience the fun and joy of playing competitive video games. You may follow me on Twitter at Jim O'Hagan. That's at JIMOHAGAN, and through the Academy of Esports account at TAO Esports. It's a great way to get the latest blog posts, podcast episodes, and news coming out of esports and education. And remember, you can continue your engagement by going to www.taoesports.com. You can also connect through Facebook at www.facebook.com/TAOesports. Thanks again for listening, and I look forward to our time again next week.